All right, so hello everyone. I hope you're doing well today. I'd like you to introduce myself and welcome you to this afternoon's information session for the Masters of Science in Negotiation and Conflict Resolution at Columbia University. My name is Andy Hummer. I am an advisor at the School of Professional Studies, and I will be facilitating some of our conversations today. I do want to let you know that we would like you to utilize the Q&A function box as you develop questions during the presentation. At the end of today's session, we will be addressing some of the questions that you share with us today. I would also like to share that the group, with the group, that today's session is being recorded and will be made available to you online by the end of day or tomorrow. At this time, I'd like to welcome you, our presenter that is joining us today, Dr. Beth Fisher-Yoshida, Academic Director of the Masters of Science in Negotiation and Conflict Resolution Program, Vice Chair of Faculty in SPS, the Executive Director of the Advanced Consortium on Cooperation, Conflict, and Complexity, and the Director of Youth, Peace, and Security Project. Welcome, Beth. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I think we did an extra half an hour just for all those titles.
Exactly.
A little bit much. All right, so I can get started?
Yeah, of course.
Right, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And please utilize the opportunity to ask questions or make comments and so on that we'll give you time for at the end of the session. And if something bubbles up for you later on, which happens a lot of times, we don't have questions in the moment, but then later on we think of something, then please feel free to reach back out to us, okay? So here, that's a picture of me. That is not a picture of Andy.
It is not.
Daughter. Okay, that was a previous student advisor. We will make sure to update the photo of Andy so you can get a good look at him. But I think that otherwise he's probably on the NECR or SPS website.
Yes, I'll be on the SPS website very shortly.
Okay, so here's just a little bit about introduction, a little bit of history, not the whole history of everything, and that we're situated in the School of Professional Studies, which is one of 16 schools at the university. Talk a little bit about the curriculum and course offerings, enrollment options, why Columbia out of any other place in the world, and then Andy will also take you through the application process, tuition and financing, and we'll all chip in and chime in for next steps in Q&A. So just you see here a little bit that Columbia does have a very rich history and was founded as King's College way back, I think it was 1754, and if I'm not mistaken, it actually closed for several years during, here are you history buffs, the American Revolutionary War, and it reopened as Columbia University. So that's a little bit of information, and the School of Professional Studies is the newest of the schools. And if you look at the pictures here, you see in the middle alma mater, and you see the quad and some of the buildings that are here. This is the Morningside campus, the main original campus, and then we also are expanding into Manhattanville. We also have further uptown the medical center and so on. So we do take up quite a bit of geographical space in New York City. And the School of Professional Studies here is started out as the School of Continuing Education, and then became the School of Professional Studies. And I think the mission is interesting too. It's to provide a rigorous education informed by rapidly evolving global market needs that support the academic and professional aspirations of our student community. And when I think about the mission of the School of Professional Studies and what distinguishes it from other schools at the university is that we're multidisciplinary. Other schools can be multidisciplinary, but a lot of times they have a stronger sense of the discipline of their school. Our master's programs also cater to emerging professions, and you won't necessarily find a lot of other places who have comparable programs to what we have. Some, but not as many as, say, if you're going in for architecture or medicine, something that's has a longer history and much more traditional. We have newer types of programs. So the NECR program in particular started at the school in 2008, and it doesn't mean that that's when conflict resolution started. And NECR stands for Negotiation and Conflict Resolution. Conflict resolution started around in the 1960s with somebody named Dr. Morton Deutsch, who's late Dr. Morton Deutsch. And he started it with social psychology and his own long history of working with Kurt Lewin and others, and starting his studies in understanding cooperation and conflict resolution. So cooperation and competition. especially after he had his experience in World War II. He wanted to come out of that war and try to figure out why is it that some people compete and why is it that some people collaborate. And then he talks a lot about mixed motives, like why is it that people compete and collaborate all in the same breath there, right? And so the faculty in our program come from a variety of backgrounds. So some people are social psychologists, some people have a legal background, they could be practicing lawyers, or they studied law and then left the law and came into conflict resolution, or ADR, alternative dispute resolution, as people in the legal field call it. They could be coming from peace studies, from communication, from lots of different ways. And it's really diverse, and I think that that helps contribute to really fabulous conversations all across the program between faculty and students, amongst faculty, and so on. And it's reflected in the types of courses and content that you are exposed to in those courses. The student body is equally, if not more, diverse than the faculty. And every time a new group comes in fall and spring, I'm always amazed at just how interesting people are, and so many different backgrounds, and such interesting insights into why people come here and study this program. How do they say this program fitting into their career trajectory and into their lives? And people come from all around the world. I would say, you know, anecdotally, that we have probably half the program is international, and of the people who are the other half, a lot of people had come from different countries and now became residents of the United States. And people come for a short term, long term, all different ways of being here. And it's very exciting because all the students bring in their experiences from their own homes and their own cultures, and that adds a lot of richness to the conversations in the room. And we do have an active student group, which is called Anchors, which is the Association for Negotiation and Conflict Resolution Students. And you can, whenever you get here, there's orientation. They're always a part of orientation. There's probably more information about them on the website as well. But the student group takes the lead on what it is they want to do, and they definitely survey and work with lots of students. So we definitely encourage people to be involved in it. It's all student-led. So when I was mentioning before that the NECR community is much bigger than just NECR, so you're coming to the school, you're coming to this program, we do build community, but you have access to not only the whole campus, but New York City, but let's just stay inside the Columbia University campus. We have a consortium called AC4, which you can see is the Advanced Consortium for Cooperation, Conflict, and Complexity. And this is the 11th year of the NECR program and the 10th year of the consortium. And the things that are of interest to you potentially are that they do offer different types of fellowships. They have 3 different types of fellowships that you learn about. So it gives you an opportunity to get some seed money to do things that you may not have funding to do in terms of research practice internships. It does have a research hub, and you have opportunities to participate in that depending on whether or not you are interested in doing more research than what you do in the program. And then it's also a hub at the university, because sometimes universities can be siloed, not because people necessarily want to be, but the way they're structured. So a faculty member could be working next door to somebody else for 20 years and not know that they actually have an overlap in what they're researching and studying. And so we have something called AC4 Link, which you can see on the screen here as well. And that is kind of like a Rolodex. Well, probably all of you younger people don't even know what a Rolodex is. It's a database of all the different people around the university who are interested in peace, justice, negotiation, conflict resolution, and sustainability. And there are hundreds of faculty and research centers in there. So as a student, if you say, you know, I'm interested in the effects of nutrition on early childhood, then you can look it up here in AC4 Link and find somebody doing something on it somewhere across the university, one of the schools. The mission and objectives is that the program really does prepare students to constructively address conflict, because we can all address conflict, but we're not necessarily all doing it the best way we can. So how do you make a positive difference in the world? And you're doing it through building community within the program and the field. And we think about you coming in as a student, but then transitioning into an alumni. We really love people being active alumni, and there are so many different ways you can be active as an alumni. And we do have lots of relationships in the field in New York City and beyond. There are conferences that we're very active in, and we play a key role, and we like you to be involved in that as well through presentations, learning, and so on. And really about developing new perspectives, how you see things, how you observe, how you interpret and understand what you're observing needs new frames, because sometimes we get stuck in the habit of using our old frames that continue to give us the same results and the same insights. And so if it's not working so well, or you want to see other ways of looking at situations, then learning new frameworks can be useful, because you're never the same, and you're never in the same situation twice, because you're different in each situation that you go to. So what may have worked before, it may not be as effective now. So having a repertoire of tools to choose from is a good thing. We think about these three areas in terms of developing competence. It's knowledge, and you do get exposed to a lot of different knowledge. The first semester is probably the most challenging in terms of being exposed to many new concepts, terminology, jargon, and so on. And so that might be a little bit of a learning curve, but then once you get past that, you start to recognize the terminology, you start to recognize some of the people's names who you read over and over again. You do develop quite a bit of skill, because we have a very interactive experiential learning model. And so not only are you learning concepts, but you're learning skills that help you to actually apply the concepts in different situations. And then it comes down to attitude. If you think you know it all, you think you've arrived, you think you have everything you need, then you're not probably going to be open to learning. So there needs to be a desire to change and to learn. There needs to be a desire to grow. And then if you have that attitude where you're open to learning new things about yourself, about others, about the world, then you have lots to choose from here. Here's a little bit about our curriculum and course offerings. It is 40 points for degree completion. You can take it in a variety of ways. You can come on campus and do your whole master's face-to-face. You can do it part-time or full-time. You can do it anywhere between 3 to 7 semesters, depending on how fast you want to go and how intensive. And we have fall intake and spring intake. If you want to do it online, it's a 1-year full-time program. It's all asynchronous except for 3 weeks you're on campus and in New York City at the end of May, beginning of June, which is considered the first part of the summer session. And there it's only a spring intake. So every spring we'll take in a new cohort for the online intensive. And then in terms of, there are quite a few different required courses. You have options for some elective courses, and we can talk more about that after too, but the different cohorts, for example, online and face-to-face, pretty much go through the program separately, except there are different points of interaction where maybe some elective classes you take together, when the online students come to campus, then some networking and so on. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. Oops, let me go back here. 1 second. The capstone process is, well, let me just say, Elizabeth, do you think you can jump in and just say something about that?
Sure, absolutely. About the capstone process?
Yes, please.
Sure, absolutely. So the capstone process is a sequence of 4 courses that every student takes. They build on each other sequentially, and the end result is a big paper. So essentially in each of the classes you work on a certain chapter for the paper, and then at the end you put them all together. The courses do work sequentially, and you build on the skills and theories that you need throughout the process here as a student to end up with a paper and a presentation that you give at the end of your time here. So basically the way it works is you take your first 2 capstone classes early on in your time here, and then you take your second 2 throughout the rest of your time. There's 4 chapters in the capstone itself. The presentations are a really cool event that we have every semester where students present their capstone to the rest of the group and to a big audience. And basically, if you're here on campus, the capstone classes are all hybrid. So you meet sometimes together, but there's a significant online portion as well. And then if you're doing the online format, then your capstone courses will all be online, and the presentation will be online at the end of your experience as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure.
I was just having a little bit of a coughing spasm. Okay, let's hope that doesn't happen again. And then the fieldwork course is a 1 credit offering we want you to take because we want you to have an experience outside of the program. And people do research assistants, internships, they work on special projects, they help support professional conferences and so on. There's a lot of flexibility in what you can do, but I think it's a nice opportunity there for people to get credit for things they want to do anyway outside of class. And here is another way of looking at the program sequences that we have, which I just talked about before, about being online or being face-to-face. And here's what a typical flow could be. Those are the names of the classes you take and which semester you take them. The classes that have an asterisk next to them are the 4 classes that are part of the capstone sequence. This is through part-time. Full-time, you can do it this way. And if you start, the reason we say number 1, 2, 3, 4, because it depends if you start in the fall or spring. And some people have been coming through the program in a more accelerated pace because maybe they don't have all the time in the world and only have a very finite amount of time in which they can come to New York and do the program. And so it's a 3-semester initiative here. That's an accelerated program. So you're taking more like 15 credits a semester rather than 12. And this is for the online sequence. And you see here that summer session 1 is the part that's on campus. There are intensive block weeks. So the courses are for a non-traditional schedule designed for working professionals. Our classes are held mostly in the evenings and on weekends. In fact, they're all held either evenings or weekends. We don't have daytime classes. Let me take that back. Cancel what I just said. We do have some daytime classes. Those are usually during the summer, and those are usually intensives like block weeks. And if you are working full-time, then that would be the time to use your vacation time. So we have some classes that meet over the 14 weeks, and it's once a week. We have some that meet for 7 weeks, so a little bit more intensive. So for example, if you're doing the first 2 parts of the capstone sequence, foundations of conflict analysis and applying conflict analysis, those are each 7 weeks. So you go through one and then could go into the next one the same semester or a different semester, depending if you're full-time or part-time. Yeah, schedules are posted in advance, so you can always plan accordingly and put it on your schedule. And, you know, if you're adding school to an already very busy schedule, it's something you have to take into consideration about how much time am I actually spending on school and how much time am I allocating for myself, because there are going to be ebbs and flows throughout the course and throughout the semester. And you're going to need to spend more time at certain peak times during the semester than others. So you have to be fair to yourself and your other obligations and your schoolwork and trying to juggle or balance your schedule. And so taking a look at syllabi in advance, speaking with other students who've been through the courses you're taking now, or speaking to alumni can be helpful to help map out when those peak times will come. Why Columbia? Well, Columbia, oops, let me go back here. Why Columbia? Well, I think Columbia has a lot of different advantages. I did talk about the fact that our program has a steep tradition in conflict resolution at the university since the 1960s. You have AC4 and other initiatives around campus where there are lots of different people, faculty, students, and so on, who are engaged in the field. It's located in New York City. So even if you are an online student, there are times when you will be in New York City for the intensive. We have so many resources around New York, so many different initiatives and different ways of you to participate and so on. And there are conferences, as I mentioned, that we are a part of. And so there's a lot of good things that can come out of being here in the program. One thing we do is we try to pay a lot of attention to people and their career development. And so there are a couple of different initiatives in helping do that. Some people who come to the program stay in the same profession they're in. Some people stay in the same organization they're in. And some people use this as an opportunity to shift careers. Everything is possible. And I would say, again, anecdotally speaking, 6 months to a year out of the program is typically when people will make a change, if they're going to make a change. It could be a promotion at work. Several people have had that benefit because they've completed the master's program. Several people have shared their capstone information, and that's been great for them in terms of being impressed at work. Some people were hired because they were able to share their capstone presentation and even get up and do demonstrations of using some of the conflict analysis tools pretty impressive. And I love hearing those stories. This is a little bit of a representation of our alumni network. And you see where the pins are is where we have alumni around the world. It needs to be updated because we cover many more territories of the world. And as I said earlier, you join the program as a student, you transition into an alumni, and we just build this global net around the world as part of our network, where the whole world is encompassed with somebody somewhere connected somehow, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 6 degrees of separation from somebody who's experienced the program and is in the field. This is just a sample of some of the faculty in our program. There is information about the professional practice that each of these people do, and something about the teaching that they do. Excuse me. And the other interesting thing to notice is that all faculty in the program are actively engaged in the field. They're either doing practice, research, or both. Nobody is only teaching, which means they bring all of their experience from being outside into the classroom. And it's really exciting then because they give you real life examples of what's happening, so you see immediate application of the concepts that you're learning. We do want the program to be very pragmatic, and we think it has been over the years. Some more faculty here. And some more. And some more. Oh, Ted has to get his picture up there. Okay, and now Andy's going to take you through the application process.
Yeah, thank you. So the application process is pretty straightforward. It's all on our program website, but the typical application for the Masters of Science would require you to complete the online application, pay the fee, provide us with any transcripts from any post-secondary schools. So any schools outside of high school or secondary school, we will need those transcripts. We'll also need a resume, up-to-date resume, 2 letters of recommendation. I would say that we would want to see one that was academic in nature, and also one that is professional, depending on what point of your career you're currently in. They're also looking for a statement of academic purpose, sort of the reasons why you're planning on coming to this program, the short-term goals, long-term goals. A supplemental essay, which depends on when you would apply. The supplemental essay will have different questions. The GRE or GMAT is optional. I would recommend that if you do score well on either of those tests, that you are welcome to upload it to your application. It could definitely help your chances of getting in. Some applications may require an interview, but that would be, they would let you know and reach out to you ahead of time. Any students that did not do their education in the United States will need to complete a World Education Service request, so a credential evaluation of all your credits. So you would need to submit a WES evaluation. And any students whose native language is not English must include a proof of English proficiency. So that would include either a TOEFL score or an IELTS score. So next slide. These are the deadlines for the applications. They will vary from year to year, but this is what we're currently working with. So early action 2 is actually going to be tomorrow, February 1st, 2019. This is going to be recommended for international students that are requiring a visa. We want to make sure that you have enough time to submit your application, have it reviewed, have it accepted, and then request an I-20 and a F1 or J1 visa. For domestic students, we still accept applications up to April 1st. And for the spring, the priority deadline is going to be September 1st, 2019, and then the deadline will be October 1st.
Mm-hmm. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, applications do open up earlier, maybe like June or July, I've heard.
Correct, for the spring, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, so tuition and financing, it's going to depend on, whether or not you are a domestic or an international student. The tuition for the NECR program is calculated on a point basis, which is very similar to a credit basis at other institutions. So most courses in the NECR program are about 3 points or 3 credits. And so each point for, as of this year, is $2,118. Now, tuition and fees are going to change, but this is the current rate that we have, and that does not include fees that will be charged for students that are on campus or online. So there's the website. You can take a look at the tuition financing. There's also student financial planning. So, students that are interested in figuring out ways to finance and pay for the program, I would definitely recommend reaching out to student financial planning. They'll be able to provide you with a lot of great resources. There's not much in the way of scholarships. Beth did mention some research grants that are available, but in terms of actual scholarships, there's not much at the moment. The student financial planning website does have a link to external awards. So especially for international students, I would definitely recommend taking a look at that website. And this is sort of the end. As you can see, this is my the contact information for myself, as well as for Dr. Fisher-Yoshida. Please feel free to reach out for any questions about admission or about the program. Feel free to reach out to me first. My email address is ah3175@columbia.edu. Yeah. So I guess we can open it up to question and answers, or is there anything else you want to mention, Beth?
No, not at this point, but I think that I'm just looking forward to somebody asking me a question. I'm sorry, I had my little coughing fit before.
No, that's all right. So we do have one question right now, and the question is, can you please name some of the ways that alumni have used this degree in the legal field?
Sure. So in the legal field, so if they're still practicing law or they're not, I'm just going to expand that. So in law school, more and more law schools now have mediation clinics, and more law schools have negotiation classes, but sometimes that's not enough. Because even whenever you learn, even in our program, you have to have continuous practice. It's part of your life work training, right? You have to constantly hone your skills. And so they come here and they learn more about it because they want to enhance the practice they're doing. So lawyers, when people come and they want legal services, what a lawyer can say is, well, yes, I can represent you legally. Have you considered mediation? Have you considered something else? So they want to learn more about that. So they learn more about the concepts of it and more practicing their skills. And so we have a broader approach than only its use in a legal situation. And so sometimes people who are lawyers want to expand their repertoire of skills beyond the legal field, especially beyond litigation, to be able to use this. And so we have a broader range of mediation, for example, in different contexts. So they may also learn something about community mediation and so on, which they wouldn't necessarily get in law school. And so that's why they're just expanding their skills and so on. Sometimes people have also stopped practicing law, depending on what they want to do, because they have decided that they want to be in the alternative dispute resolution space instead. So, and then sometimes students come here as a step before they go to law school. And we've had that more recently in the past couple of years. So that's a younger demographic, and students will come here to get a foundation in negotiation and conflict resolution, which I imagine changes their experience in law school because they have a different lens in how they're understanding their experience at law school than if they didn't have it. So people come both ways. They either are lawyers first and then come to the program, or they come to the program before they become lawyers. So I hope that answered your question.
All right. The next question I have is admission to the online cohort more competitive than the on-campus cohort?
I don't think so. I think they're both competitive, but I don't see one as being more competitive than the other. In fact, no, because I'm curious why somebody might think that is.
I think it's just more of it's providing students that may not be able to come onto campus in New York. It provides them with a little bit more flexibility, so it may not be necessarily an issue of competitiveness.
Hmm. And it's still newer, so once it gets more popular, maybe. But right now, it's not more competitive.
So we have a question. If you have submitted your application before the December 1st early action deadline, at this point, when should we expect to hear back for a decision? I think that with that, the application process has been, pretty. There's been a lot of applications, so they're currently going through the review process, the admissions committee, right now. So you should hopefully hear back within the near future.
I think actually that tomorrow.
I believe so. I believe so.
I don't want to overly commit ourselves. You're being more diplomatic about it than I am, but I do think that tomorrow is people will start getting notified tomorrow.
Perfect. So we have another question. Are there any electives within the curriculum, or do students ever take courses outside the School of Professional Studies? So for example, the student is interested in international conflict.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of ways of answering that. You have two elective options in the program. One, at least, of those electives has to be taken from the program. You can take both in the program, it depends. Or you can take one in another school. The conditions are that you have to first get it approved by me to make sure it's something that we will count. And usually we count most things except language, gym, and I'm not even sure what else. And then you have to make sure that it's open to students who are outside of that school and outside of that program. And then in terms of international conflict resolution, you will get maybe a different kind of concentration, like going to the School of International Public Affairs or something like that for that class. But within the program, we do pay a lot of attention to international conflict resolution as well. It is a focus area that people can have, and we're expanding on the different focus areas that we have in the program as well, sort of developing that more. Some people come here for international relations, international development, international diplomacy. Some people come for working in organizational context, HR related things, leadership development, negotiation. Some people come because they want to learn more about mediation. Some people come, they want to learn more about emotional intelligence, or they want to learn how to apply this in communities and schools. So we're developing more and more of those focus areas as we go on.
And doesn't the international fieldwork component also
Yes,
look into international conflict?
Yeah, so this year we definitely have the Regional Sustainability International Fieldwork Trip, which takes you to Jordan, Israel, and the Palestinian territories. And we have an option, depending on student demand, for either going to Rio de Janeiro or Uganda. We used to go to a lot more. Now we're building that up again. And in the past, we've also been to South Africa, and we've been to Medellin, Colombia. And in the future, we'll just keep opening that up more.
Perfect. I have another question. Has there been alumni that have used this degree in sort of an international context?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, that like at least half of our students are international. So is it international from their original home? I'm not sure, but it's used around the world. It's recognized around the world. It is a Master of Science from Columbia University. So just the university itself has tremendous brand recognition, which adds a lot of credit. And then the degree definitely has. For example, we've had quite a few people who've come through the program who have family businesses. And so they're going to be growing into and taking more leadership responsibilities in the family business. They're applying what they've learned here in that context. We have people who have definitely gone overseas. Somebody went to England and joined she was not originally from England. She joined a consulting firm, and people have definitely used this around the world because the concepts and skills that you're learning are applicable anywhere in your world and in your life. And the case studies we use as examples that you practice on are global case studies.
Perfect. Interesting question. What kind of career changes have you seen that is the most memorable?
Most memorable. Well, the ones that come to mind, I guess, would that be the most memorable or what I'm remembering in the moment? So a lot of times people decide that maybe they're reinventing themselves. And so they maybe mid-career and they decided maybe they don't want to stay in working full time in an organization. And so what they do typically is start their own consulting or different kind of business. We've had a couple of people who've joined together over the years at different times to co-create business together. And that's kind of fun. Like instead of going out there and being an entrepreneur on your own, you have somebody else who's like-minded from the program. You create something together. That's probably the most life-changing that I've seen, or the most memorable, I should say.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, other people, like I said, have gotten promoted inside, but not really a big industry change as in that.
Um, Good question here is, what's the usual age demographic for incoming students?
Anywhere from like 22 to 70. I mean, it's really been where we've had people reinventing themselves for the second and third time, or we have people who are coming pretty much fresh out of university who have some internship experience. So they have another context other than the school setting in which to understand what they're learning. And I said they also are using this as a stepping stone towards other things. That's why we let people in the program who were younger, in the younger demographic. But I would say the bulk of the population is probably late 20s to mid 30s.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And actually, that's a great segue to this next question. So for younger students, so what's the scope for a PhD after pursuing this program?
Excuse me. So it depends on what you want your PhD in. And it depends on why you want a PhD. Let's put it that way. So some people get so excited about being here and learning, they say, I'm going to continue, I want a PhD. And I say, okay, what is it you want to do after you get your PhD? But sometimes a PhD is the way to go and sometimes it's not. PhDs are really good for deeper dives into a more specific area of interest. They're good for research and developing much more ability at being able to be a researcher. And they're also good for if you want to become a university professor. Usually there's a PhD required. They're not as necessarily as good for other things such as wanting to expand what you're doing in terms of practice. And so what I've noticed a trend, and I think it's even beyond the program, just a trend in general, is that people are getting more than one master's degree. So very often people come to the program already with a master's degree and they're getting another one here, or after this, they go on to another one. And I think the reason is that if you think about, there are conferences, we'll be having one too in a few months on the future of work. If you think about what's happening in the workplace, is that careers are shifting and things like traditional manufacturing are not as, not as I don't want to say the word relevant, but not as popular as before. There are new kinds of analytic kinds of jobs, things in the data tech world, and different ways of branching out and doing things, different ways about developing the green economy, and sustainability. So there are new ventures taking place all the time. And I think we're in a really creative space right now. And that's why the School of Professional Studies is one of the greatest places to be, because this is where so much innovative thinking is taking place in terms of preparing people for these next careers. So having a degree in negotiation and conflict resolution in conjunction with some other degree is a very powerful combination. Now, there have been students who left the program and have gone on to PhD programs, and I know because I've written a lot of recommendation letters for them, and I continue to do that. So that's very viable too. But remember that because PhDs are more singular discipline focused, if you're going for a PhD in conflict resolution, then it's a no-brainer that you can easily transition. If you're going for a PhD in psychology or sociology, political science, international relations, you need to make sure that you have enough coursework in those areas, because when the admissions committee checks, they will be looking to see that you're steeped in that field, because they're investing a lot in you. And PhD cohorts are rather small, so they invest a lot in you. They want to do a thorough, surveying of what you've applied for and the ingredients you've applied with to make sure you're a good fit.
Great. Have you ever seen any instances where alumni have leveraged this program to start working with the United Nations?
Yes, the United Nations and Columbia University have a very reciprocal love relationship. The UN loves Columbia University loves the UN, and so there's been a lot of back and forth there. There have been students in the program who've done internships at the UN while they are a student, and that's a stipulation. You have to be a student to do an internship. And then once they've gotten their foot in the door as an intern, if they've developed good relationships, they've been hired afterwards, coming back on a short-term or longer-term basis. But because of the nature of the contracts at the UN, they're more short-term basis because that's just the nature of the way they do things. But there have been some people who have been and are still at the UN or missions to the UN from different countries. We've had both.
Wonderful. So we have another question. So if accepted, is there the possibility of deferment in case of sort of changed circumstances or not being able to attend the term that you applied for?
Well, yes, because we understand that life has its twists and turns. I would highly encourage you to not apply if you know you have a possibility of deferment, and to wait until you're sure that you can attend before applying.
All right. Let me see here. For people applying for fall 2019 after the early admission deadline, do you think there's less chance to be admitted than if they waited to apply early decision for the spring?
No, I think that if you want to get in fall, just apply and see what happens. There could be a waiting list, but I would encourage you to apply. As soon as you know you're ready to attend, apply.
Okay, great. Should students have an idea of what they want their capstone to be before applying? And can the topics fall under a pretty broad range of issues like environmental, social, gender, business, as long as it touches on negotiation and conflict resolution trends?
So we've had both people who know what they want to do when they come in and then maybe have modified it a little bit, or people who have no idea and then develop something. When you start the capstone process, you'll be placed in a case study for one of three areas. It's either an organizational context, it's an international context, or it's a community context. And then after the first two courses, at the end of the second course, you write a proposal for what you want to do for the third and fourth class. And so that's when you have a chance to either stay with the same case, but identify the unique approach you want to take in looking at it, or you can choose a different case or different situation, and then you get that approved by the faculty. In terms of looking at broader categories, sure, conflict resolution and negotiation intersect with with everything in some way or another. The whole challenge in identifying a topic for capstone is the scope. So we will work with you on making sure that if you're looking at gender or environment, whatever it is, that you will have a narrow enough focus in your scope so that you can do it justice, because it has to be a fit for the capstone process. Excuse me. And we've had people do things on gender, environment, lots of different topics before as well.
Wonderful. We have a question that says, is there any course we can take in Columbia before enrolling to the formal program, like a preparation course, or can you take courses separate prior to enrolling as an NECR student?
Nothing in particular. I think it's better to come into the program because we do have a preferred sequence of how you take the courses, going from very broad and foundational to then getting narrower and narrower and more focused. So I think it's better to come in the program and then go in the sequence we recommend. And I don't know of any particular preparation course, but if you've been out of school for a while and you want to get your feet wet, then I think taking a post-baccalaureate course of some sort to just get an experience of being in a graduate school, that could be helpful.
Would they be able to take any NECR courses as a post-bac student?
People have. My preference is they follow the sequence, because if they start to take it as a post-bac, it puts them out of order of the sequence, but we have accepted people in that situation before.
Okay, all right. Have there been students who have gone off to law school after this program?
Yep, absolutely. They have.
Perfect. We have another question. Can negotiation and conflict resolution be pursued as a career independent of any other educational specialization?
Sure, it just depends on what you want to do. We have people who have been mediating, have been ombuds, have been arbitrators, teach conflict resolution in a variety of contexts. It could be workshops, courses in undergraduate or community colleges. Yeah, people have done lots of different things. Coaching, conflict coaching. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. We have a question that, is it possible to get in touch with alumni who are open to speaking with prospective students?
Sure.
Yeah,
So
we
that's,
have,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Yeah,
No, go ahead, Andy.
I was just about to say, we actually are having one of the alumni is actually going to be part of our admissions and recruiting team. He wasn't able to attend the meeting today, but if you just reach out to me, I can put you in touch with the alumni, and he'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, another thing is if you are going to be in New York on March 7th, that evening we're having an alumni panel speak. So you'll get a chance in the Q&A or networking to also ask those alumni or other alumni about their experience. And one of the things they'll be talking about, and I think we're going to be recording it as well, so it'll be available on the website. They're going to be talking about their experiences and how they've used what they've learned in the program in their work.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And then a final question we have here, can you share any information about the faculty to student ratio breakdown for the on-campus option?
Some of our classes are maybe 30 students, but you have a main instructor and then you have a teaching associate who's also like typically an alumni of the program. And they're both highly competent and skilled. And that would be like one of the larger classes, unless you're in a class like the first class of understanding conflict and cooperation, where there are students from other programs as well, which could go up to 40 or 50. It's more of a lecture type. But the other classes can go down to, 8 or 10 students, especially when it comes to the fieldwork courses or some of the electives.
And then in terms of the hybrid option, the online option?
There is a full-time faculty for each, not full-time, there's a faculty and a teaching associate for each course. And that will also probably not be more than 20 per group. So if the enrollment exceeds that, we'll have to make different sections of the class. So it'd be 20 to 2 max.
Right. Wonderful, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Does the program help place or recommend internships involving mediation or negotiation in NYC? Or is that up to the students to find?
I like to say it's a partnership, it's a joint effort. So we do hear about lots of different things that we constantly circulate to students and alumni. So you'll always get that through us. In terms of actually placing you, we don't. We can recommend you and we can share the information, but then it's up to the place that's bringing on the mediator to actually decide to go with you or not. But we do, but then if people also say, hey, I heard about a great thing, then, we also check it out with them and make sure it's, something that's good and can be used for fieldwork credit and so on.
Wonderful. I think we'll look for one more question. Otherwise, is there anything else that you would like to mention about the program, Beth?
No, I loved your questions. It's so great because, it also helps me realize what else I could hone in on. But, there's just so much you can say at one time. Think about that comes out of your brain out of your mouth from your brain. But I like the fact that you're really starting to get into the little nuances of the program. So no, I appreciated your questions. Nothing else from me.
All right, perfect. Well, in that case, I would like to extend a big thank you to everyone for participating in our webinar this afternoon. As a reminder, this information session is recorded and will be made available to you online. Should you have any other questions or questions that haven't been answered during the webinar, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to provide you with additional information as needed. So I just want to thank Beth and the director for NECR, as well as Elizabeth Hearn, who is the associate director for the administration for NECR, for helping us with this presentation. And thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.